Those in favor of the agenda is amended. That passes 8-0. Student recognition, Superintendent Groutman.
Yes. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome Zuzu and his family here to our meeting this evening. Zuzu, well, yes, sure, let's give him a round of applause. Zuzu and Mom and Dad, would you mind coming up here? So I'm going to go off script for a minute, but I was fortunate enough several years ago to meet Zuzu over at Pine Brook and was absolutely delighted. And you will see very quickly why I was so impressed by this young man. So Zuzu Sampson is a visually impaired fourth grader at Pine Brook Elementary School. After sharing his frustration with the lack of Braille books in the world, where he could see himself in, he was determined to change this. He started writing his own Braille books. On top of being a singer and a songwriter, Zuzu is now a published author. So we have a clip this evening where we'd like to share with you, where Zuzu is sharing his experience about writing this book. So if you want to take a look at some of the TVs, we're going to share that.
That's Oz.
That's Oz. There is
No, you guys can stay. If you don't mind, I would like to do a picture. If we got a minute, Joe, we'll do the picture first. All right, we'll do that. Board? Superintendent, deputy?
I gotta get the book in.
Yeah. I mean, this is a community child.
Hi, I'm Zuzu, and I'm 9 years old, and I am in 4th grade, and I go to Pine Brook. The reason I wrote this amazing book is because I couldn't find any superhero books at my level. So I decided to write my own awesome book to share with the world. Tips for other kids who want to write books are: don't think about what others tell you about your story, because your story is unique in its own way and it's amazing. Here's a little sneak peek of my book. Braille Alien had a secret. He was busy working on it. Braille Boy was enjoying his time watching TV in his cozy hideout. Braille Boy sprang into action. He zoomed down a slide to uncover the mystery. Read more of this amazing book by buying it on Amazon and find out what happens. Thank you guys for letting me share this amazing book with the world.
Zuzu, I would end just by saying a huge, huge thank you. We are better as a community. We are better in Greece because you are in here with us. And we just so appreciate your exceptional determination and all that you've done to inspire your classmates and us as adults here in this community. Thank you so, so much. We appreciate you.
Next up, we have our student leaders from Odyssey, but before they come up, I want to give a shout out to one of our former board members who's in the audience this evening, Mr. Sawicki. Thank you, Mr. Sawicki, for attending, and thank you for your service. Proud parent of one of our Odyssey presenters tonight, so Odyssey student leaders, come on up.
Good evening. We are the Odyssey Academy student leaders.
We are here to present 2023 to 2024 school year as scholars.
To start us off, we interviewed our middle school student body. Here's what they had to say.
I wonder why everyone likes coming to Odyssey so much.
I don't know. We should ask them. Hey guys, why do you guys like coming to Odyssey?
Because Odyssey is something like different, and you get to meet different people, and you get to create a bond.
Maybe the classes, the teachers, the people.
Okay, what do you like about Odyssey?
I like to see my friends and I like to learn.
I like my favorite teacher, Mr. Weeks.
The teachers.
I think my friends and the food, and I like some classes and the teachers are nice.
I mainly just come to school for the friends and some of the teachers because a lot of them are nice to me, so yeah.
Because it's fun and there's a lot of things to do, and yeah.
One thing that makes me want to come to Odyssey is my friends and my friends.
What makes me come to Odyssey is it's a good school and everybody's so nice.
I'm here because so I can get my education and my friends.
I'm here because they have a good education and my friends.
I have a lot of friends and I have people that love me and trust me.
Hi, my name is Anissa. Oh, hold on. Hi, my name is Anissa. I'm in 7th grade, and one of the clubs I am in is the Drama Club. What you just saw was a clip from our Good Morning Odyssey show. The GMO show is our weekly morning show that we have here at Odyssey. Behind me, you can see some pictures from our middle school homecoming dance in September and the Valentine's Day dance that we had a couple weeks ago. We also have a variety of clubs here at Odyssey as well. A few clubs that we have here at Odyssey are Middle School Art Club, Drama Club, and the Middle School Student Council.
Hi, my name is Malia, and I'm in 6th grade at Odyssey Academy. I wanted to tell you about my favorite parts of the school day. I love to see my friends and Miss Schneider, and I like to cash in my Pride cards on Fridays at our Pride card. I love Spirit Week and art classes.
Hi, I'm JP Swicky, 8th grade class leader, president of the 8th grade. I'm here to talk about our celebrations. Our celebrations are ways that we reward the students who are on good behavior or whatever we're trying to focus for the month. So it could be getting to class on time, making sure you have a pass with you. that sort of stuff. And our celebrations are fun activities we do at the end of the month to show our respect for these scholars who partake in acts of good behavior. So at the end of January last month, we had a movie day where we had all the people without a referral for the month come on down and watch a movie for the first 2 periods of the day. And way back in October, we had our Halloween celebration. That was my favorite, where scholars showed up in costume. We played party games. There were snacks, music. It was a whole lot of fun. And I'm glad that we're continuing these. And yeah.
Hi, my name is Janine Zodarecki, and I am an 8th grader at Odyssey Academy. I am also a member of National Junior Honor Society. I have been a part of the Odyssey Music and Drama program since 6th grade. This program has brought so many talented kids together. While performing the show, I made so many new friends and had so much fun.
Hi, my name is Alex, and I'm a 6th grader at Odyssey, and I'll be sharing what I like about my school. One thing I like is 6th grade band because you can play almost any instrument you want, and the concerts are really exciting and fun. And you have to put lots of effort in, but it's worth it. The second thing I want to talk about is pep rallies. The pep rallies are really fun for me, and we have them every month or so. In the pep rallies, we have really fun challenges that the audience members can join in on too. Some challenges we have are like our tug of war, racing, and pie eating contests, and they're really fun. And the last thing I really like about Odyssey are sports. You can play many sports like soccer, football, softball, and baseball once you're in 7th grade. And there are many sports updates every morning on the announcements about our sports teams. And that's all I have for today.
Hi, my name's Paige, and I'm a 7th grader at Odyssey, and I'm going to be talking about some stuff with the clubs. Some clubs we have at Odyssey are the art club, bowling club, student council club, and much more. We could be in more than one club at Odyssey. These clubs are really fun to do, and most of the clubs you have to do after school.
Hi, my name is Carter. I'm a 7th grader from Odyssey Academy. I'm going to be talking about the teachers. I think teachers at Odyssey are really nice and caring. So, Mrs. Silva is really funny, so is Mr. Oliveri. Ms. Picoretto and Ms. Simpson are really nice. Mr. Weeks is really fun and he's funny. Mr. Hayes is really fun. Mr. DePascal is the best. I also interviewed some other students. From Maddie, we have I like Odyssey because I feel like the teachers really care and want the best for me, and there's a great support system with the counselors and Mr. McFadden. Man Kelly says, Mr. Weeks is my favorite here at Odyssey. He lets me and Trinity come for lunch almost every day. He's super nice and funny. I also really enjoy seeing Mr. McFadden in the hall because he's my bestie and he cares a lot about me and my friends. I'm also going to talk about the baseball program. So, the coaches have been great and have been giving us tips about what we need to focus on. And at the end of practices, we always do something fun, like a scrimmage or something like that. Thank you for coming.
So, it's me again. Hi. I'm closing us out here. I want to thank all of you guys here on the board and our principal, Mr. Hepburn, right here, and all of you wonderful families for coming out and supporting us. So, pat on the back, round of applause for all of you guys. Thank you.
Just before these scholars sit down, I just want to add just a few recognitions to the list of things that they've already said. And we have two of our student advisors here in the audience. They worked hard with them, but this was created by scholars. So, we had our first meeting, and I remember them saying, what do you want to do? And then just turned it over to them. So we have Ms. Snyder and we have Ms. Cumming. So as you can see, our scholars, and you talk about language and we talk about the restorative work, and at Odyssey we understand that restoration is not something you do, it's a way of being, and we view things through that lens. So when you think about restoration, it's through the restorative framework. And if you heard what they said, we talk about it at our district level meetings, everything was below the green line. They talked about relationships. They want to come to school to see their friends. But it's obvious that a lot of learning occurs during that time, but if we don't have relationships, kids don't learn from people they don't like. And that is what we understand at Odyssey, and that's why we're committed to high expectations and high support. And we get that through setting the standard and saying that we care enough about you to push you enough and hold you accountable. And that's the same thing that I do for my seat as the principal, and that's what I get from our assistant superintendent, who is over Odyssey, and that is Dr. Colicchio. High expectations and high support. So you see it in their presentations. It is what we talk about at district level, below the green line, and we'll continue our work. So thank you, scholars.
And it's picture time. Come on down.
Are we inviting the families up? Or? Yeah, Candy.
It's gonna be a big picture, huh?
Well, we have, if you want to, if you want to, you're always invited.
Great job, JP.
Come on. All pictures.
What did you, what order are we in? I didn't catch that.
Yeah, we gotta, you know, you guys don't have to stay, you have other stuff to do. Yeah, but you gotta, yeah.
Take care, man.
Take care. See you there.
You too.
All right, moving on to our next item. It's 2.01 staffing. Can I somebody move the staffing to the table, please? Moved by Vice President Malor, seconded by Mrs. Farmer. All those in, any comments, questions, or concerns on staffing? Seeing none, all those in favor? That passes 8-0. Assistant Superintendent Larson.
Thank you very much. Tonight, I would like to welcome our newest House Assistant Principal, Alicia Chapin. Alicia attended the college at SUNY Fredonia for elementary education, Nazareth University for her special education master's degree, and Canisius College for educational supervision and administration. Alicia's current role is a teacher on special assignment at Long Ridge and feels the best part of her job has always been building relationships with students, teachers, and the school community. She is looking forward to expanding those relationships and learning from others to be part of a team that makes a difference for our students. Alicia is a mom, wife, and educator. She has 3 kids, one of whom works in the district's autism classrooms, one in college, and one in high school. Outside of the workday, she loves to play golf in nice weather, takes walks with her dog, and visits family out of state. Congratulations, Alicia.
Alicia, we're going to have you do a picture with Assistant Superintendent Payne, Deputy Superintendent Smalley, and the Superintendent. Thank you. Congratulations. All right, moving on to 2.02, non-unit rate sheet. Can I have somebody move that to the table, please? Moved by Mr. Butler, seconded by Mrs. Flores. Any comments, questions, concerns on the non-unit rate sheet? Seeing none, all is in favor. That passes 8-0. Moving on to Teamsters 52-week holiday language MOA. Can I have somebody move that to the table, please? Moved by Ms. Flores, seconded by Mr. Maloney. Any comments, questions, concerns on that? Seeing none, all is in favor. That passes 8-0. Moving on to GTA MOA WBL certification. Can I have somebody move that to the table, please? Moved by Mr. Maloney, seconded by Vice President Malloy. Any comments, questions, concerns? Seeing none, all is in favor. That passes 8-0. Moving on to the Kids Care Individual Agreement. Can I have somebody move that to the table, please? Moved by Ms. Farmer, seconded by Mr. Maloney. Any comments, questions, concerns on that? Seeing none, all is in favor. That passes 8-0. Moving on to item 4.01, mid-year strategic plan update. Superintendent Groutman. You gotta go to the other side.
Why do I do this every time?
Rookie or what?
Good evening. So let me just start by giving a little bit of context. So what we're going to do tonight is give an update around our strategic plan. For those of you who may not know, we worked really hard on this. It's our second strategic plan that I have worked on in the district, but we're in our second year. So that's pretty exciting. We worked on the lion's share of developing the strategic plan really towards the end of COVID, which is just an interesting time in education collectively. In the strategic plan, which I have right here, and I'll talk a little bit about, this is sort of a labor of love. It represents a ton of input from lots of different stakeholder groups. So as a group and as a committee, we really work to get thoughts and input from parents, from students, from teachers around the way that we design this. And then what we've committed to beyond the creation of this is really bringing it to you as a Board of Education in our community to review on a regular basis. So this is our annual sort of mid-year check. And the one thing that I would point out about that is within a mid-year check, within this document, there are a lot of measures that we've identified in terms of things that we're collecting and following to see how we're making progress in terms of reaching our goals. However, some of the measures that we've identified in here are only gathered once a year. So I say that to you because as we go through this presentation tonight, you're going to see some areas that we say we're measuring, and we are, but we may not have a formal number there at this point. So my hope tonight really with this presentation is just to again remind us of sort of what our collective commitments are, what is the work that's going on relative to those, and how are we doing related to the measures that we've identified, as well as sort of where are we hoping to get to by the end of the year. So with that, I'll just again point out in our strategic plan, our vision, which I'm going to read, but I think it's worthwhile because this, again, took a ton of time to really think and plan and work with stakeholders to articulate. The Greece Central School District will be a source of pride and inspiration for the Greece community, where we serve as a hub for equality, creativity, innovation, and inclusion. We will transform our educational approach in order to elevate the cultural assets, voice, and agency of all members, as well as to empower students to flourish as responsible, empathetic, engaged citizens. So I say that just to give a bit of context in terms of that is that bigger overarching vision that we have within this plan. We have 3 commitment areas that we've identified. The first is related to igniting learning, where you'll see some of the more instructional work that's happening, or academic work, as you might think of, we'll be reporting on. Commitment 2 is another area around cultivating trust, where we have pulled out some measures and we'll be reporting on those. And then commitment 3 is around expanding opportunity. And again, that will, the measures in there will not be new to you either, because these are things that we talk about on a regular basis. And pretty much any presentation and group of people that have come in front of us are really talking about one of these three areas every time we meet as a Board of Education. The last thing that I think is worth noting is down at the bottom of this slide. These are the values that we've identified. So in addition to working with people to create the strategic plan, we identified clear values that were important to us as a district. So as we do our day-to-day work, as we consider and think about decision-making, we're always anchoring into these commitments and the values that are identified here. And with that, what I'll do is turn it over to Val, who's going to talk to us about Commitment 1, Igniting Learning. Oh, my apologies. Jeremy Smalling, who's going to start us off. Wrong order. I'm really hitting him.
And you just took a lot of the stuff I was going to share, too. So as Kathy mentioned, our strategic plan is made up of 3 different commitments. Each of those commitments have aligned progress measures. We use those progress measures throughout the year as a tool for us to see, are we staying on track? Where are we towards our goals? However, there is multiple data points that we use besides these measures that you'll see in the strategic plan that schools are using to develop their school improvement plans. We recently just had a data dive with the elementaries and the secondary with multiple data points that we use in addition to these to see how we are staying on track and where we may need to adjust. We also use these measures to look at professional development and some needs in that area as we go throughout the year. So Commitment 1, as you can see, this is focused on fostering a learning environment that promotes student engagement, belonging, and academic growth. And the first measure that we'll share tonight is on participation in professional learning. And in our new GTA contract, this was a highlight in the new GTA contract where we wanted to focus on professional learning, how to engage staff in choice professional learning. And what you'll see here is that within the new contract, all GTA members are required to participate in a minimum of professional learning hours. And again, that is choice. So that's outside of the workday. That's not your typical staff meetings or something that would be taking place during the day. This is outside of their contractual day. And the minimum is 10 hours, and they could go up to as high as 20 hours. And what this graph shows is what you'll see in blue was the previous year, 22-23. And you can see it's broken down by hours. So at this point last year, about 101 GTA members didn't participate or even complete any professional development. Now, it's a new contract, so there was a lot of learning that had to take place. But just within a year, you could see that number was almost cut in half. And then you could see as you go through up to 10, the red's growing. So more and more of our GTA members are becoming more aware of the contract and participating in these hours earlier in the year than they have in the past. So that is, I think, when you see 0 and 1 through 2 decrease the way it has, it's showing an increase in 3 up to 11 plus. So that this was a good sign. Our second measure under Ignite Learning is a percentage of our K through 5 special education students that are being included in general education classes or special area classes. And you can see from the previous year, we were at 42% of our special education students were included in general education classes, and we've increased to 58% as of right now. And I will say a lot of this work has taken place through the collaboration between the building principals and the Department of Pupil Personnel Services, working with buildings within their problem-solving process to look for those opportunities for our special education students to find some opportunity in the general education classroom. So that increase really is a testament to their work.
I'm just going to add one thing. The one other piece that I just want to point out is, and this goes back to the design, these measures were picked intentionally. So when you go back to the professional learning, there's research obviously that connects teachers who are participating in professional learning with improvement in their practice and then better results. There's research behind the idea that the amount of time students, particularly students with disabilities, spend with their gen ed peers, that they're, everybody benefits from that, but particularly students with needs. So I just want to point out with each one of these, there's a really deliberate reason why they were picked. Some of them tend to be more leading, some of them are lagging, but either way, I think it's really important to get a full picture in terms of overall how we're igniting learning and really meeting those goals.
All right, also around igniting student learning, we look at both the reading and the math achievement metric. So what this graph shows is since 2019, all the way up to current 23-24 school year, the students that are meeting expectations, that they're at or above grade level. Again, we look at this measure in the fall, in the winter, and again in the spring. So you can see where we are at 40%, just coming off of that winter assessment. Now, I am really, really pleased to report, first of all, this is a K-8 measure. We use the iReady assessment for kindergarten through 5th grade, and we use the reading inventory as the assessment for our middle school students. So it's all kind of lumped together for the reading achievement. But when you pull out just the K-5, I'm so happy to report that what we're noticing is with our K-5 students whose teachers are implementing the ARC core, and we've had Suzanne and Julie here that have given updates around that, the literacy updates. But for those students whose teachers are implementing ARC core, we're at 49% instead of the 40%. So we're really, really excited to see some pretty significant growth. Also, Todd Smith shared with me recently that in looking at the data even a little more deeply, our black students, which is an area that we know that we need to improve on, those teachers that are the students that are in classrooms of teachers that are implementing ARC core, we're seeing a 10% increase versus those that aren't. So we're really, really excited to be able to report that out in regard to the reading achievement. And then this also, the K-8 iReady math achievement, again, just like reading, we look at this 3 times a year. The blue is the fall, the red is the winter, and then the yellow again is in the spring, and we'll report that out to you. Again, the students that are at or above grade level, and we're at 28% right now. Again, looking at this a little more closely because, you know, when we get data, we ask a lot of questions and want to know a little bit more information. And so I'm excited to report out that there seems to be a bit of a correlation between the K-5 students whose teachers are implementing ARC core. For those students are at 33% versus the 28%. So, you know, we're hoping that that's not just a coincidence and that there is some, you know, some close correlation with that. All right, this next measure is a little bit complicated, and I may have to rely on Todd to help me with this, but this basically is the reading growth rate, and this indicates the median percentage of progress towards typical growth. We normally report out on this once a year, but I just wanted to show you this because what we're looking for, what we've called out in our strategic plan, is for a 4% increase with this every year. So you can see since we started where we were at 77% back in 2021, our goal was to be at 90% by 2027, and we have made like incremental, you know, chipping away at it 4% every year. I think the thing that's really just kind of important to say is, yes, we look at the achievement data, which I showed you on the previous slides, but the thing that's more important to us is really specifically the growth that students are making. So our students take an assessment in September, and then that basically gives us some baseline information of where they are, and we look at typical growth where kids are at. And we are constantly trying to make sure that we have stretch goals for kids, especially the kids that we know we need to close the gap with. And so basically, this is what this chart indicates. Just wanted to share this again. We're not reporting out on this at this point. I just wanted you to know that we don't just look at the students that are, you know, at or meeting expectations. We go much more deeper to Jeremy's point around we just came off of a data dive and looked more closely at all sorts of different data. But this really gives us individual data on students, and then we can customize instruction based on that. And then likewise, this is the same thing that we do, what we do for reading, we do for math, where we look at the typical growth. And so if we're on track, you know, we were at 103 at the end of the year last year, and our goal would be to at least get that 4%. But, you know, we hold high expectations for ourselves, so we're hoping that we're going to be able to knock that out of the park as well. All right, for commitment 2, cultivating trust. I love this one, I really do, and we've done so much work with this. We're committed to creating a school district that acts with honesty and care while holding ourselves to high academic standards aligned with our core values. So some of the things that we look at around this particular commitment is staff retention. We're not going to be reporting out on that. That's one of those that we report on annually that Gina provides for us. Shared decision-making, Jeremy's going to speak to that in a minute. But equitable hiring practices, Gina also shares information that she'll be sharing out at the end of the year or the summer when we typically share that with the board. And then we also have information around the student perception survey, the instructional staff surveys that we do, as well as the input that we get from our families with these surveys. But to the point that Jeremy made before, these are some of the things that we do to measure that, but it's not the only thing that we do. So what we've got going on in all of our schools across the district this year is the parent exchanges. So that's another way to be able to collect data and see how things are going and how we can do things better. So just wanted to kind of give you an update on some of those things, because some of the things we do actually report out on formally with data for you, but also just to kind of give you a little behind the scenes of some of the ongoing work that's happening too. With that said, I'll turn it over to Jeremy.
All right, so this measure is with shared decision-making, and it's really looking for committees within schools and the districts that have one staff member, one parent, and one student. And so for this measure, we just looked at our school improvement teams. And the reason for this, there's such a variety of committees from school to school. Some may have one group of schools may have a certain set of committees. Another school may have a whole different set of committees. So we wanted to at least select one committee that's consistent across the district, which is our school improvement team. And these are teams now that have one staff member, a parent, and a student. And right now in our schools, you can see that we're at 58%, an increase from 54. One of the obstacles that you'll hear from buildings when it comes to a student or a parent being a part of those meetings on a regular basis is sometimes just the timing factor, that these meetings are held in elementary, they're before school, and some of them are right after school. And when you're trying to get a parent that's going to commit to being a part of that for every meeting, that's where some of those obstacles that they run into. So they're continually looking at different ways to bring in parents, but that is an obstacle that we're continually looking to overcome as we try to bring parents into the committees. And at the district level, you could see a significant difference with that, between 85% of growth of 5% from the previous years. And a lot of times what you'll see with that is these are meetings that could take place not just at the start of the day. These could happen during the day or sometimes even in the evening compared to the sit meetings. So move on to the next.
Good evening, everyone. This slide has to do with our perception surveys, which we just got this data back for, actually. Annually, we do perception surveys for our parents, students, and staff to obtain perception on topics that are related to our REACH strategic plan in each of the 3 commitment areas. So the area that we're outlining for you tonight is specific to the cultivating trust commitment. And we do a lot of work with Franklin Covey, as you know, through our Leader in Me initiative. And all of that research points to trust as being a foundational element for any sort of advanced improvement efforts to occur within a system. And if you combine that with the work that we've done with Zaretta Hammond about the way that the brain works to ignite learning, really that's all built on a foundation of psychological safety and trust. So what the perception surveys are designed to do are to give us an indication of how our three big stakeholder groups are feeling about climate and trust from their perspective. The surveys are all anonymous, and the data from the surveys is used to inform schools to develop and progress monitor their school improvement plans, as well as our improvement plan at the district level. So the surveys are given annually, and the window actually just closed in time for this presentation. All the questions given are rated by the participants on a five-point scale. And the way that the positivity results are measured are only the 4s and 5s are counted in the positivity rating. So it's an actively positive rating in order to count for the survey results. So as you can see, over the past couple years, we have made improvements in the perceptions of cultivating trust from our families, from our instructional staff. And I think most importantly, or at least the one that is most notable to me, is the improvement that we've made over the past few years for our student perceptions of cultivating trust. So if you notice back in 2021-22, for our baseline year, we were at 64%, and we have grown incrementally. In this past window, we were at 87% positivity rating for Cultivate Trust for our students. One final thing before we move to expand opportunity, just want to give you a sample of some of the questions, just to kind of frame your understanding. One of the questions for families for Cultivating Trust is, does staff at this school care what families think? Question for instructional staff would be, the working environment in my school is positive. And for the students, the rules are fair for the students at this school. So those kind of capture the spirit of the questions, and there's others that also fall into those buckets as well. So for the third and final commitment area in the strategic plan, we have expand opportunity. Actually, a lot of the board presentations that we do for you are really at least partially capture the spirit of this commitment area, whether we're talking about the Seal It by Literacy or the pathways that we have. Those really kind of all are examples of ways that we expand opportunity. But specifically for the strategic plan, we're looking at clubs and services, the SEL screener, which I'll talk about in just a second, our college and career readiness index, post-secondary enrollment, and community schools and our partnerships there. Just as with the other commitment areas, not all of these will be reported on at this presentation, but they will be in the annual presentation. So as far as our SEL screener positivity rating goes, this is measured similarly to the perception surveys, but this is with students only. These are not anonymous, because what we want to do with the student responses to these is add them to our progress monitoring, add them to our data analysis as part of the full picture of a student's experience, and potentially use those to inform some group or individual interventions that we can use with students based on how they're feeling their capacity is in each of the 5 SEL competency areas. So these surveys are student perceptions of their own capacity across the 5 competencies, including things like social awareness and responsible decision making. So we haven't seen the growth that we're hoping to see by this point, but that also coincides with our effort to explicitly teach these skills, whether it be through Leader in Me in the elementary schools or through our SEL block at secondary. And as we were kind of brainstorming and digging into this data and trying to explore root causes about why we might not be seeing as much growth as we had hoped so far, one thought is that students are actually becoming a lot more aware of their own capacity through an increased understanding in what these competency areas actually mean over the course of the past couple years that we've been explicitly teaching them. So we'll continue to work and improve on these, and I'll turn it over to Val for the next slide.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, so this next metric, we really are looking to increase for our students' activities, in-school and after-school participation. That's really what we're going after here. This particular slide, though, just shows you at the elementary level some of the extracurricular clubs. So we've been looking to grow these, expand upon them. And again, we're going to be sharing this data out with you annually, but really sort of our hope is as we're increasing the number of clubs, that there'd be a correlation that we'd be increasing the participation. But we're working on getting even specific numbers for you to be able to report out at the end of the year. But just wanted you to know that there's a lot of work behind the scenes that's happening with that. Even pleased to report that we're going to be starting our next round of clubs at some of our primary buildings, and we've been working with Dave in transportation to be able to provide transportation for our students, which is something that we haven't been able to do in the past. So as we're looking for these expanded opportunities for kids, that exactly what, was shared with Dr. Hepburn, reasons for kids wanting to come to school. And we know this is one of the ways. I may not want to come to be engaged necessarily in my math class, but, I've got a club going on after school today, so I better get to school. So this slide actually reflects the number of lead innovative partnerships. Now, just to be really, really clear, we've got different levels of partnerships, from the parent that might want to come in and volunteer in the classroom, or a community member that might want to come in and volunteer like a one and done, or clear up to this sort of highest level of partnership that we called lead innovators. So with the metric, we look at tracking the lead innovative partnerships across the district and looking at growing and expanding these as well. But these are ongoing, lead innovative partnerships are ongoing with one or more schools. And they can be a community-based organization, they can be a local business, they can be a faith-based organization, and individuals in the community. They make ongoing donations of their time through volunteering, supplies, materials, or monetary donations. This may involve contracted services and agreements between the innovator and the district. But we really work closely with these partners so that it's aligned with our school, the individual school improvement plans, and our district strategic framework, so that it's really tight and it's aligned with the work that it becomes mutually beneficial. So it's beneficial for our school district, and it's beneficial for the organization or the agency, whoever it might be that we're partnering with. And to the point, we've really been able to develop these and grow these over the years because of the relationships that we've been able to develop. Sitting down and having conversations around the work that we're trying to accomplish here in Greece, and having conversations with some of these partnerships around things that they're working on, and then how do those two meet so that we're able to provide additional support. And I'm hoping that we're going to be able to, this is just a nice visual representation of some of those partnerships, and I'm hoping that pretty soon that this slide becomes so busy that you can't even make sense of it. That's my goal. Any questions?
Yeah, I would just sort of close by saying a couple things. The data that you saw, obviously it wasn't every measure that we've identified, and it shows some areas that we're really proud of. It also shows some areas that we still need to work on. I think it's really important to recognize that there is a great deal of humility in our system around looking honestly at feedback, at the data that we've collected, and then also this notion of continuous improvement. And I would say, just as a team, from everyone standing up here to all the folks that we have on our instructional team and beyond, we have a ton of professionals that are really working hard, looking honestly at where we are, and then digging in terms of continuing to work to improve. So I appreciate your attention. I appreciate you also recognizing that this isn't the whole story, that we have, for example, the data dives going on, that we have, for example, another report that you'll be getting around a lot of the behavioral data. That quarterly report will be coming out to you, and it also shows some really promising trends. But that we work really hard to take a really holistic look, and then also put plans in place to continue to improve. So with that, if anybody has any particular questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Vice President Moore?
And maybe you mentioned it and I missed it, but what kind of participation do you have in the parent surveys?
I don't have an exact number for you. I do know that it's lower than we'd like, but we are working to increase that by looking at different incentives. And one thing we did this past survey window was we gave parents the opportunity to enter. After they registered, they would send a confirmation in. They would get in a raffle for a gift card just like the community schools needs assessment, which really ratcheted up their responses. So we're seeing an increase, but it's nowhere where we would like it to be.
Mr. Maloney.
I think I've answered my own question, but just for sakes, on page 11, on iReady math progress towards typical growth, I saw last year and the year before, we were at 62, 61, mid-year, and we're at 58. Is there, just, I know it's only a couple percentage points, and I know it doesn't, the year isn't complete yet, but I was just wondering why it was just down a couple degrees. Is it the population? Is it student enrollment? Is it, okay, Todd.
I was like, am I allowed to get up? So like you said, it is just a couple of points.
Just a couple of points. It's nothing.
At the K-5 level, we are seeing some growth correlated with ARC core as well, because as students read better, they do better on math problems as well. So we're hoping to see some of that in the 6-8 level as well. So where some of that is at the 6-8 level, so we're looking at what adjustments we can make in our 6-8 curriculum to help address some of those issues.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mrs. Farmer?
Is this the year that the new math program has started, or was that, yeah?
Sorry. So the new math program started about 3 years ago, of course, right in the middle of COVID. So it was a struggle to roll it out. But we are about 3 years into that, and now we are working on our new ELA program. So that's where we're focused on right now.
Mrs. Flores?
So I know this year we have been focusing on absenteeism. So I'm curious, as we look at some of these numbers, how things are going with some of those efforts that we're having, because I do know that when our students aren't here, our numbers are not going to increase, they're going to decrease. So I'm curious as to where we're at with that, and maybe some feedback on that, please.
Yeah, sure. There's going to be a lot more information coming in the next board packet in the report Kathy referenced with the attendance and behavior. We are seeing a reduction in our chronic absenteeism rate compared to last year at this time, which is great. A lot of that has to do with the work of our student family advocacy and support team at the district level, preparing the attendance manual along with the attendance committee, and then rolling that out to schools and their own individual attendance committees, really making an effort to make personalized phone calls, really calibrating some letters to go home at different benchmarks. And all of that has led to a decrease in our rate. But like I said, more detail on that will be forthcoming.
You know, the only other piece I would add to that is to Val's point around the clubs. There's an increase to 40 clubs, right? More kids are participating. And I know I was reading an article recently from another area of the country that had been able to correlate their clubs and extracurriculars to attendance. So we haven't gotten to that point yet, but it is something that we want to be able to look at, because it gives credence to why are we really listening to students in terms of what clubs they want at the schools, how are we making sure that we can get them transportation if possible, all those things, because on top of everything, those huge efforts, some of it is really just basically kids connecting into school and wanting to be there.
Mr. Butler?
Thanks. I love this report. I love getting these data points. I really appreciate all the work that goes into pulling it together, and congratulations on the great progress that you're seeing in a lot of areas. I had one question on slide 13, which is the shared decision-making committee makeup, and you had mentioned the challenge associated with the building level based on the times that those groups are meeting. Is there a reason why it has to be done at those times which are less convenient for parents? Like a contractual issue with teachers being there or something like that?
That's the simple answer right there, is that
Okay.
those generally are, well, the majority of the members are teachers or teaching assistants or support staff in there. So trying to either, put that into the day or just before or after is generally where those meetings fall.
Yeah. I guess one thing to consider, if it's a contractual thing, then maybe there's nothing we can do about that. But if we're prioritizing what's convenient for one audience, then we get the results that we get, right? So there may be some value in thinking about that, I guess. So.
Mr. Bonagoro?
Thank you. I appreciate this information. This is really helpful, and I love seeing the progress in here. Superintendent Groutman, I heard your comment about humility. I really appreciate that. With that, understanding that, I just want to make sure I'm understanding some of the measures here accurately. When we're looking at the iReady data for both reading and math, we're looking at percentages of students who are at grade level at 3 different points in the year, and it looks like in both cases we're topping out around 50%, which means I'm interpreting that to mean that humility piece, we've still got a lot to do. There's like 50% or so that aren't there yet.
Yep, you're correct.
Okay. I do have some.
Does anybody else have any other questions? Mr. Butler, then we'll come back.
The perception survey, congratulations on the great results on the perception survey progress. That's excellent. I think it's foundational to everything else. You know, if people don't feel like they're welcome, and we heard Dr. Hepburn say, you know, you can't learn from people who you don't have a relationship with, so I think that's hugely important. I just want to put in a vote for us to try to figure out how we can disaggregate that data along lines of things like race. Dr. Smoline and I were talking about this before the meeting, and I just think, I know it's not easy to do, but I think it's really important for us to be able to dig into these things at a deeper level. So,
No, I appreciate that. We agree. We agree.
Yeah.
Mr. Bonagario?
I share that sentiment. I'd love to see that too. Dr. Payne, math is fun. That is a big reason to go to school. It's not waiting for the after-school clubs. That's really important. Just want to put that in there. We have a lot going on that I'm aware of and really excited about on with the new literacy program. Really excited to hear about that initial burst. And knowledge is sticky and it compounds, so it doesn't surprise me that it follows through into the math side, possibly for just, word problems, things like that, but also you get kids motivated, right? And now they're really charged up. They're feeling that they're doing well in one area and they want to push it into the next as well. So I see that happening on the reading side. I'm not as familiar with the changes that have been going on the math side. I know Todd, you shared some information with me. What I saw in that looked like a more constructivist approach, and correct me if I'm wrong. I saw some things about that suggested things like productive struggle, or letting kids struggle with the math problems before. The suggestion was teachers should refrain from helping the students. Let them struggle with it first. Is that an accurate description of how we approach the math side?
So in math, part of the standards for standards of mathematical practice from New York State is productive struggle. And so giving students the opportunity to try their own strategies. Often a math problem, there are 3, 4, 5 different ways to approach it. And so we want to let students approach it in their own manner, in their own way. And then the students start sharing those ideas and the teachers make those connections. And then they solidify that with that direct explicit instruction to make sure to support the students in making those connections. So there is some of that allowing students to go through that problem solving and that struggle, because that is actually part of the standards.
Thank you. I didn't know it was part of the standards. What we're seeing in the science of reading, and there is the science of math out there, and science of learning, and all of it emphasizes the value of upfront direct instruction followed by that productive struggle. I don't know if that's something that can be incorporated into it, but I would hope we're looking into it. There's so much research that's pouring into all of those areas.
Yeah, our program really emphasizes both. So the balance isn't just one or the other. We really feel like students need that direct explicit instruction so they can learn those skills, but then they also need an opportunity to struggle and to problem solve and work through that. So it's not one or the other, it's both in conjunction, and the teachers strategically give students those opportunities when those are needed. So there's opportunities when they need that explicit instruction and opportunities when they need opportunities to problem solve, just like we do in everyday problems in life.
Thanks. Any other questions?
Could I just add one more thing onto that? I think that it's important that Todd provided last year, and again, looking at the data, our principals were able to have the Ready Math folks come in and have some specific professional learning happen for their schools, so that it was really kind of customized based on what the data that the school had. So I think that what we're also seeing is a result of some of those instructional practices based on what the professional learning that was able to be provided last year for schools.
Mrs. Farrar had her hand up. She hasn't asked a question.
Oh, okay. Thank you, guys. I'm going to go on page 14. This is with the perception survey positivity results. Is there any way, I know that with the REACH program, we do have the humility, but we do also have a little bit of honesty with that part of it. Is there any way you can give that information to us, to the board, the rest of the results regarding the survey? Because I know it is only, you're only marking the 4 and the 5, the positivity ratings. It would be helpful, actually, if we had all the information versus just some of it. Can we get that information?
Can you be a little more specific what you're looking for?
Sure. The survey results
Yeah.
state on 14, perception survey positivity results. You had stated that you're tracking the positivity ratings, which you're only tracking 4s and 5s.
Right.
We had said that there were some, that you were only tracking, I mean, I was trying to be less vocal and asking for more here. The positivity results, when you said that this is only tracking 4s and 5s, where's the 1s, the 2s, the 3s? Can we have that part of the perception survey results?
So the 4s and 5s are included in, that's what the metric is. Everything else is the 1s, 2s, and 3s. So if there's an 87% positivity rating, that's the 4s and 5s. And then the 1s, 2s, and 3s would be the other, make up the other 13%.
Okay.
Ms. Farmer?
Would you speak a little bit more towards the reason why we want children to struggle initially with math, and how, what comes from that in terms of self? Thank
Yeah,
you.
And I want to be frank, it's not necessarily struggle initially, it's struggle at strategic points. So it's not that, oh, we start them off, they know nothing, and they're going to do, we're going to make them struggle. It's, we've taught them some strategies and things like that, and now we're going to engage them in a problem where they have to use some of the strategies and skills that they've learned to productively struggle and learn how to persevere and problem solve through those things. So that's a great question. But every topic is a little strategic around that, right? So there is sometimes it's like we're directly explicitly instructing these skills, and now we're going to give them some of these problems and allow them to problem solve through that and struggle rather than telling them how to do everything, because they need to learn those skills of problem solving in situations, right? So every topic in math, there's not like a universal, like this one we're doing it this way and this one is this way. It's the teacher judging based upon, okay, I've taught the kids these skills, now we can allow them to utilize those and struggle and problem solve in different ways. So they're not building off of no knowledge.
You know, the other thing I would add, and I think it's important because this isn't new either, is it helps students to also see where they're being efficient and not being efficient. So to Todd's point, what you might see in a classroom after there's been a direct instruction around uses of strategies, you might have students share their thinking around how they solved a problem, and you can see really clear examples from students around who was able to do that efficiently and who wasn't. And then that conversation can come back to direct instruction around why would you pick something that's not efficient and that doesn't work? It still might get you to the answer, but we're trying to help kids be both efficient and understand what they did. So, and I would say the word productive struggle, I guess I would just be really careful, because I do believe there is sort of this bigger messaging and sort of mantra around all that everybody knows that we should be doing in education. So everybody now is an educator and knows what we should be doing. The reality is productive struggle is important for learning. And most of us, when you think about something that was hard for you, that you finally got and really understood, it was because you productively struggled through it. And that could be everything from riding a bike, it could be any sort of skill, whether it be more academic or whatever, on any subject. So I think the key, though, is we have to recognize, and that's part of professional development, is part of the work that we do around training teachers, around what is that balance? How do we make sure that there's direct instruction so students do have the information, but also back off and give kids time to try and play and sort of think about that so that they're making better meaning and building better and stronger understanding. I say that all with the recognition that when you look at our academic scores, they're not exactly where we want them. But I would also argue, I don't necessarily know that a 3.8 New York State test is the best assessment in terms of where our kids are in terms of all of their learning. So that's a bit of a grandstand, but I just want to be clear, because I do think we've been very thoughtful. I don't think we're behind the boat in terms of like not teaching kids directly. And I think some of the messages that have caught on are not accurate necessarily for where we are, what the work Todd has done with the team.
Any more questions? Ms. Vera?
Is standard as far as hours that students have to have on iReady? Is there a certain, I mean, how many hours a day are kids on iReady?
So there's not hours a day. The company recommends 40 minutes a week. So it's not hours per day. But that is not a mandate, but it is a recommendation to try to achieve that. And so that's done in a variety of ways, through station work and different things like that. But it is not a mandate.
Okay, so is that 40 minutes for reading and then also 40 minutes for math?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Anybody else? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And with an update from Gates tonight, our undefeated boys Athena basketball team won a nail biter, 61-57. So they stay undefeated and they play for the sectional championship this weekend. So
Where do they go?
it should be at the Blue Cross Arena. Who are they playing? It depends. The winner of Victor and, do you remember, Mike? Pine? Yep, Victor and Arnold. Thank you, Todd. All right, moving on to item 4.02, budget update debt service, Superintendent Groutman.
Yes, we have Megan Bradshaw here today, who, thank you, welcome Megan, who's going to come and give us an update in terms of our debt service. I think you're here to do a couple presentations for us this evening. Welcome.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me. Okay. So Romeo, at the last meeting, talked about how we were going to meet with our fiscal advisors and then present our debt service budget. So debt service is just one component of our budget. It's which also dovetails into the tax cap calculation and the capital exclusion. So what is the debt service budget? It's funds needed to retire long-term debt issue. This is for our capital projects and bus purchases. If we look at what is currently issued and outstanding, that this first column is the originally issued debt of $177.5 million issued. Of that, there's $93.9 million that's still outstanding. And you can see that breakdown in those columns of between capital improvement projects and bus purchases. So Romeo wanted me to make sure and touch on, like, is this a good thing or a bad thing that $93.8 million is a really big number. So by statutory limit, the district has a cap of 10% of the full value of the district's, the full assessed value of the district. So for Greece, that's 6.6 billion. So 10% of that would be about 664 million. So that currently outstanding debt of 93.8 million is about 14%, and that's before state aid. So from a percentage-wise, yes, that's a big number, but we're still in really good shape. So looking at our current year and next year's actual debt payments, in that middle section, you'll see that's our actual current year expenses. So it's 17.3 million that we'll be making payments on this year. This may increase slightly because of bond anticipation notes. We'll finalize that plan next month. But that, compared to budget from last year, is still under budget. That budget was 18.5 million. And then all the way over, circled in red there, you'll see that the debt service for 24-25 is 19.5 million. So this is just a breakdown of that 19.5 million. And you can see the largest portion is Reimagine Greece. So as old debt retires, it's replaced by new debt. So our current project is Reimagine Greece. It makes sense that that's 47% of the debt payments for next year. This first column is our total debt service from the prior slide, the 19.5 million. So we'll come up a few times here. This is less projected building and transportation aid of 14.5 million. This brings us to our net local share of about 4.9 million. So just again, to summarize, we have our total debt service, the 19.5 million that we saw a couple slides ago, and then less our projected building aid of 12.2 million and transportation aid of 2.3 million, brings us to the net local share of 4.9 million. From that net local share, we have a transfer from debt service. So when we started Reimagine Greece, we said we would manage the capital exclusion to stay at 2.7 million or less, so there's no additional costs above the levy from when it was prior to Reimagine Greece. So this is our 218,000 is really utilizing debt service fund to manage that $2.7 million exclusion, and that's from premiums for issued debt, so premiums on obligations. Also, what Romeo talked about last time, we have this one-time appropriated fund balance of $2 million. That's for the playgrounds and the pavilions they talked about. Again, leaving the capital exclusion to 2.7 million or less. Just to summarize this top portion is their appropriations. This is what you're going to see included in the budget. The top section of that is our serial bond payments. There's a transfer to capital for that $100,000 capital outlay project, and then a transfer to capital for the $2 million for playgrounds and pavilions. The bottom of the section is the offsetting revenue. So we talked about, so the tax levy we'll get to in a little bit, but this is the capital exclusion portion, that 2.7. And then the building aid, 2.2 million, transportation aid, 2.3 million, the transfer from debt service to manage that 2.7 million of 218,000, and appropriated fund balance, again, for those playgrounds and pavilions of the $2 million. So again, debt service budget for this year is about 19.5 million. It's about 6.3% of the budget.
Any questions?
Any questions?
Mr. Butler.
Just a quick thank you for the context you said at the beginning of this. It's really helpful to know how that 90 million compares to what the statutory limitation is, and that was just very, very helpful to have that context. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Other questions? All right, thank you. Moving on to item 4.03, tax cap calculation.
Yeah. We're going to keep Megan up here. I would just, frame one thing before you get started. the tax cap is something that's gotten a ton of attention over the years. And I think when most people talk about it, they hear sort of this idea of 2% tax cap. And as we have lived, it obviously is far more complicated than that, and has a really significant impact in terms of our budgeting process. So I appreciate this update and you sharing with us, because it helps to sort of frame a lot of the work going forward with budget. So thank you.
Okay, so tax cap, as Kathy mentioned, this is a really complicated calculation, and we're just going to walk through some of it. So the tax cap calculations, just to clarify, limits the total levy set by the district. It doesn't set the assessed values, that's the town of Grace, or the tax rate, that's really just a calculation. It's the total levy set by the school. So we spent a lot of time on the capital exclusion portion of the calculation because, you know, that we make it a priority to work with our financial advisors to minimize the impact of the exclusion on the tax cap calculation. That's at 2.7 million. So not all districts do this, and I just, in each district's tax cap calculation is very different, so it's hard to compare. One of the primary factors of the calculation is the tax-based growth factor. So this is provided by the Department of Taxation and Finance. This represents new construction, new growth, significant improvements to taxable properties. This is like the brick and mortar growth in your district. It does not include new pilots. So there was a bill proposed to allow tax-exempt properties to be included. That was actually just vetoed in December by the governor. So it still does not include new pilots in that tax-based growth factor. For 24-25, that'll be 1.0043, which is just slightly up from the prior year, which was 1.0022. So this is the tax-based growth, a chart from when the tax cap started. So even though there is an increase this year, there's still a downward trend. And, you know, as I mentioned in the last slide, pilots are not included. This is, so if we think about Greece, we think about the senior housing developments, Amazon, Li-Cycle, those big projects and all the other pilots that we have don't contribute to that growth factor. This is the 24-25 tax-based growth factors for the county. So you can see in green there is Greece at 1.0043 compared to the line across is the county average of 1.008. So Greece is the bottom half of the county, but certainly not the lowest. This trend is slightly up in the last 8 years, but has always been under, Greece has always been under the county average. Greece meaning the green bars, and the blue represents the county average. I mentioned pilot payments in another, in a previous slide. This is another primary factor in the calculation. So pilots meaning payment in lieu of taxes. These are arranged through COMITA, which is the local IDA. And these properties are exempt from property taxes based on their assessed value. And it's typically based on a fixed schedule or a percent exempt. And the difference is they're not on the tax roll, so we bill these directly. Just an update for existing pilots. The Li-Cycle North America Hub, which was a new pilot last year, could be terminated. We haven't gotten official notice of that termination, but we did include it in this year's calculation. As of now, we don't have notice of termination. And then just completed pilots for this year is Doodlebugs and LA Fitness, so those will go back on the tax roll for next year. The next factor is allowable growth factor. So Kathy talked about that 2% cap. This is why a lot of people think the levy is capped at 2%. However, as you can see, there's just a lot more that goes into the calculation, and every district is really different. So this is provided by the Department of Taxation and Finance. It represents the lesser of 2% or CPI, which is the inflationary change. CPI for 2024 is 4.12%. However, we'll be capped at that 2% again next year. So if you think about inflation, you know, school districts, we still have our salary agreements, retirement costs, health care costs that often go above that 2%. And so we would be capped at that 2%. This graph just, the bars represent the allowable growth factor and the line represents actual CPI. So anything 2% and under, they're the same. So allowable growth factor equals actual CPI. Anything above 2%, so that's including the last 3 years and 7 years in total since tax cap has been, actually exceeded that 2% cap. And then in 16, 17, you'll notice CPI was almost zero, it's 0.12%. So definitely a factor in our calculation, but not the only factor. So next we get into the capital exclusion, which we talked about previously in the debt service presentation. This is the portion the district works with our financial advisors to stay at that, again, manage to the 2.7 million or below. And then a few years ago, there's also a BOCES capital exclusion. A few years ago, the state allowed that as well, so that is another component that we'll see. Something that we haven't seen since 2013-14, but there's also a pension exclusion for ERS and TRS. So if the employer contribution rate exceeds 2% or increased by more than 2 percentage points, it's an exclusion in our calculation. So this is the case for ERS in 24-25. The rate's going to go from 13.1% to 15.2%, as Romeo mentioned in a prior presentation. So the change is 2.1%. So anything over that 2%, so the 0.1, we multiply by the projected ERS salary base. So you'll see $40,000 as an exclusion for ERS. Again, just recapping what we saw in the debt service presentation for the capital exclusion. We have our debt service budget of the $19.5 million, projected building aid of $12.2 million, projected transportation aid, $2.3 million, brings us to our net local share of the 4.9. We're doing a transfer from debt service of $218,000, again, to manage to that 2.7 number. And then that one-time funding of $2 million for playgrounds and pavilions from appropriated fund balance brings us to our capital exclusion of the $2.7 million. And then if we add in BOCES debt service and aid, so the net effect of those middle numbers is about $249,000. Our total levy capital exclusion is $2.9 million. If we bring all these factors in together and just recap and walk through the calculation, we have the current year levy, so 23-24 levy multiplied by the tax-based growth factor, which was 1.0043. We add in this current year, the current year pilots, and subtract out the capital exclusion for the district and BOCES from the prior year, gives us our adjusted prior year levy. We take that and multiply it by the allowable growth factor, which again is capped at that 2%, and subtract out our pilots for 24-25, which you'll notice are very similar to current year pilots, so that change doesn't impact the calculation that much. This leaves us with the tax levy limit before exclusions. And then from that, the exclusions are the capital exclusion of the 2.7 for the district, $249,000 for BOCES, and that ERS pension exclusion of the $40,000. So that leaves a maximum allowable tax levy for 24-25 of $125,481,449. This is an increase of $3.1 million or 2.55%. So we can go at this amount, and we just need 50% plus one vote. If we go $1 over that, or anything over that, that's when you need the supermajority or the 60%. And then just the next thing is the submission of that tax cap calculation due to the Office of the State Comptroller's Office is due by March 1st. So we'll be sending it shortly. Is there any questions?
Mr. Maloney?
First of all, great report.
Thank you.
It was kind of simple and kind of plain, and I understood it. Unfortunately, I understood it.
That's good.
But one thing I don't understand yet is, does the town has increased a lot of our property taxes, all of us. Is that included in the base, that the bill that they send us?
Yeah,
I
so-
mean, how do I say this? They have a base of $20-some a thousand. Does that go up? Are we,
So the town sets your assessed value,
right?
and then the tax rate that the school taxes are based off of is a calculation. So it's our levy divided by the total assessed value that the town sets.
So the town has already sent their total assessed value, even though they've had increases last year, and a quarter of them, or 25% of the houses. They do every year, so do we get any more money?
We don't get more. Nope, nope. Oh, okay, now I see. Yep, nope.
Okay,
We don't
all
get
right.
any more, so the levy is the amount that we
Okay,
get.
all right, thank you very much.
Yep.
Any other questions? Ms. Flores?
I really just want to make a comment. Thank you. Great job on this. Overall, we continue to see, even though we are seeing raises in assessments in the town, which makes it look like our taxes are going up, the school district continues to keep this as minimal as possible. But I would like to point out the number of services, the number of employee positions that have expanded in this district for all sorts of things, such as mental health, student achievement, new classes that we're going to be bringing in next year, a bilingual class, which I'm really excited about at English Village. The finance department has worked these numbers every which way of Sunday. I'm sure they do it in their sleep. It's crazy to me, and it is super complicated, but they're really good at it, and they have squeezed out every possible component that we can get in this district to provide additional services based on the feedback that we are getting from our students, from our parents, from our teachers, from the staff. Keep the comments coming, and when you have a minute, tell them thank you, because we would not have these services if they do not take the time to figure out the best way possible to get every last ounce of benefit out of the money that we derive, not only from the tax levy, but from our foundation aid, et cetera. So thank you, guys. Great job.
Any other questions? Thank you, Megan.
Thank you, everybody.
Moving on, 4.04, our budget update, bus replacement recommendation. Superintendent Grauman.
I'm just going to invite Romeo to give us his annual recommendation
Should've just
or
let
proposal.
Megan do this one as well.
I know.
and
It's
have a
nice.
Good night. I do want to thank Megan for presenting this evening. I should have introduced her a little bit earlier, but she is our Assistant School Business Manager and District Treasurer. So all the debt service numbers and all the tax cap numbers, she works with directly, intimately, and knows that information inside out. So I thought it was just time to have her start to come in and present some of the materials that we prepare every year for the budget. So, but I am going to take the last, just so I can say I did something for the board meeting this evening. So, the last item we have this evening is our annual bus purchase replacement. Each year, we do a bus replacement to keep our fleet up to date as much as we can. Just some history. Each year we have a committee that represents different stakeholders. They meet in the fall to talk about criteria on which vehicles are going to be traded in or sold and need to be replaced based on mileage and or maintenance cost on them. They're charged with determining the number of vehicles, which ones to trade in, and then make recommendations for minivans if we need them. And in the last few years, you'll see the bottom note here, we have added some minivans to our fleet. We generally try to use those, especially with the bus shortage, to offset some of the student transportation where it's only 1 or 2 students that we don't need a full bus for somebody to drive. We use our minivans in order to try to transport that to help save on some drivers and some mileage. Cutting to the short, for this year, we are recommending only 10 gasoline vehicles, 8 of them being 30-passenger buses, and 2 of them being 2 wheelchair buses. We're recommending trading in or auctioning off an equivalent 10 buses, and we are not purchasing any large buses in this upcoming recommendation. If you recall last year, when the electric bus mandate came out, and it's still there at this point in time, takes place at this point in time, 2027. We over-purchased some large buses last year. This year, we're purchasing 10 vehicles. Last year, we purchased 35, and we purchased 10 extra large buses so that we could sit on them and see what's happening with the mandate, because they're very difficult to get gas buses in a timely manner these days. So we are, as we said last year, we're overbuying large buses. We would not buy any large buses for 24, 25. We are not. We're buying 10 small buses. The 10 vehicles are shown here. The unit cost is shown. Total purchase is just over $1 million for the 10 buses. 2 items just to point out here. The 8 Bluebird 30-passenger vehicles are almost $100,000 each. Last year, they were 1.6% less. So the increase on the buses, for the small buses, went up about 1.6%. For the 2 wheelchair buses, they went up almost 4% from last year. But last year, compared to the previous year, all the buses went up 20 to 35 or 40%. So we took the hit then. Right now, there's still kind of modest increase. We're looking to purchase or utilize in the budget an allocation of $1 million for those 10 buses. Our debt service payments on those 10 buses will begin next year and are included in the figures that Megan presented. We will get transportation aid on that $1 million over a 5-year period at approximately 78, 79%. We're going to utilize $490,000 of our capital reserve for buses in order to offset the local share. So between the state aid we get in 5 years and the monies we take out of the reserve, there will be no additional local cost to residents for the purchase of those 10 buses, because we match the payments with the state aid over a 5-year period. Questions?
Anybody have any questions? Ms. Flores?
I apologize, Don, please indulge me, because it sounds good in my head, but it may not come out right. I know there's a lot of legislation yet to be determined on what we have to do with these buses. I also think in my mind, okay, so we're not going to purchase buses next year. We're trying to over-purchase now, but we don't know what's going on with what type of buses we're going to need in the future. I also think about cost. And when the demand of something rises, cost rises. Are we in a position where next year, if legislation does come into play that is definitive, that indicates that we need a certain type of bus, that we could change our mind and actually purchase buses next year at the cost then? Because I'm thinking to myself, as time goes on and more school districts are requesting these buses, which we know are going to be difficult to get because the components in the buses are difficult now, where are we?
Are you referring to purchasing
Not gasoline buses. I guess
zero-emission?
any
Okay.
other type of bus other than gasoline, would we be in a position to act on that next year?
No, we would not.
We would not.
We would not. So when we set up this plan, when the mandate came out 2 years ago, our position was, let's overbuy in year 1, hold for year 2, buy again small for this year, and wait and see where things go. If, for some reason, we had to go a year without purchasing any buses, because we're just not sure which way it's going, we can do that, because we bought the 10 extra buses last year. So it was purposeful to buy 10, or over pie in 1 year, buy small the next year, wait and see in year 3. If we're still unsure what we're going to do, we don't need to buy or replace any buses. We'll be good holding. If we have the green light and we must now start to go to electric buses, we probably could, but we wouldn't have the infrastructure for those buses to be ready inside a 1-year period. We just would not be ready for it. We could physically purchase the bus and wait for 18 months to get it, but we wouldn't have the infrastructure ready to charge it or utilize it. So we're still in a holding pattern intentionally to see where things go. If it gets delayed, our goal would be to purchase another set of gas buses in 25, 26, and kind of see where we are and get us to the point that, again, if we need to pause, we can do it without interrupting any student transportation throughout the district.
Thank you.
Mr. Gregorio?
Romeo, refresh my memory. When we purchased the 35 buses last year, was that to provide a surplus in the fleet for coming years, or just to freshen up more of the fleet now?
Correct.
Okay.
That was replacements. So we purchased 35, traded in 33.
Okay.
The 2 extras were the 2 minivans that we didn't trade anything in.
Thank you.
Any other questions? What's the turnaround time on those 10 buses from the time we
We were
ordered?
just talking about that today. We're thinking September, October,
Okay.
right now.
Very good. Thank you very much, Romeo.
Thank you.
All right, 5.01, change orders. Can I have somebody move those to the table, please? Moved by Mr. Maloney, seconded by Mr. Butler. Any comments, questions, or concerns? I'm just going to make a comment that these change orders are saving the school district $177,195, which is very nice to see. With that, any other comments? All those in favor? That passes 8-0. Moving on to budget status report. That's information only. Does anybody have any questions? Anticipated bids, again, is written information only. Anybody have any questions? All right, the consent agenda. Can I somebody move the consent agenda to the table, please? Moved by Ms. Farmer, second by Mr. Maloney. Any comments, questions, or concerns on the consent agenda? Ms. Farah?
Yes, I am talking about the bid report that we have regarding the book vending machines. I see that Global Vending Group we're going with, and the bid is for $5,600 each. How many are we going to end up going with?
How many vending machines?
Yeah.
I only know of one, but I don't know if there's more wrapped up in there. I think the bid is just giving us the price for.
Given that it's a $5,600 purchase, but it was bid, makes me think that it's over the $20,000 threshold, so we will probably be purchasing at least 4, if not a few more, would be my guess. Otherwise, we wouldn't have done an RFP, we would have just obtained 3 quotes to buy 1, but given there was a bid for it, it was over the $20,000. Potential, not that we're going to, but potentially we could. So we're set up to buy as many of them as we would need.
How many do we need?
I don't know that.
So right now, there's one at English Village, so my guess is just that the other 10 elementary schools might be wanting them.
Might be interested.
So that would be probably why it was bid like that.
Okay, so it just broke it down. We're really bidding on basically, I mean, I know it says for one is $5,600, but you're typically looking for 10, so obviously the bid is over 20,000. Yeah, it's 50. Okay, I appreciate it, thank you.
Ms. Farmer?
Thank you. So I'm wondering, what's the purpose? Is it because it will excite kids? You know, why are we getting a book vending machine?
So Val, I don't know if you want to talk more about it, but I know at English Village, they've used it more for, like, there's titles in there that kids earn tokens. It's rewards. Yeah.
It literally is like a vending machine, and teachers can give, like, over and over at English Village, they have like little tokens that teachers can pass out for different, like, they see kids doing things well, and then they get like a treat to be able to go down and pick out a book in the vending machine. They're brand-new books. They're beautiful. Tammy, I know, had that when they did the ribbon cutting for the book vending machine, had the opportunity to be over there that day. It's really cool. And yes, I know that there were some other elementary schools that were interested in being able to have that as well.
I have to say, I think the book vending machine was really, really cool. And the kids are very excited about it, and they change out the type of books that are in there and that. And just the fact of them getting the token itself to go down to the machine is pretty cool, I guess. But it sits, as soon as you go into English Village, it's right there in their main vestibule. And it's exciting for the kids because they could see something in there. And I've been in there a couple times when I've been visiting the school, and the kid will go by and say, I want that book. And, well, different schools do different things for it. Like my daughter's middle school, they do character count coupons, and they have a little store they can do things with. This is an enticement for the kids, and they make a lot of comments about it. It was pretty cool.
Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of the consent agenda? That passes. Maggie, was your hand up? I didn't. Okay, 8-0. Moving on to student trips, can I someone move student trips to the table, please? Moved by Vice President Moore, second by Ms. Flores. Any comments, questions, concerns on student trips? Mr. Maloney?
Just one. All the trips combined, do we pay for that, for those trips? Or I saw the one for the marching band, the rough cost was $100 per student. Are we paying that 100, or is that part of the collection that they're doing? They're getting bottles and cans and drives, and they're earning money that way.
So there's three separate trips with the marching band and the robotics. They do a lot of fundraising to that point, and that's where that's being funded. Those are like more choice extracurricular type of trips. The other one, the third one, is connected more to curricular in terms of a class and competition related to DECA. So that one
I
is
thought
being funded by the
we were
school.
giving a bus toward that, or a bus, we were doing the bus thing.
Because it's local.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we also doing a bus for the Ohio one? That's not local.
That's paid for by, which one's Ohio? That's paid for by the
That's-
marching band. The
that's the
marching
marching
band
band.
pays transportation back for that one.
Perfect.
Any other questions, Mr. Bonnegorio?
Is the DECA curriculum, is that part of the career pathways? Or is,
I'm assuming it's part of the business pathway, yeah.
Business.
Yeah.
I would assume it is.
Yeah.
I thought that was in Albany. Is it in Albany? Or is
No, that one's here in Rochester,
Yeah.
but
That-
they
that
have
here?
to stay
Local?
here, yep.
Yep.
But it's all students from New York State.
Okay.
Any other questions? The only question I have is on the marching band trip. The chaperone costs are 0, but I see it's 5 district staff. Is the marching band covering that? Is that how that's working, or, okay. Very good. All right, with that, all those in favor? That passes 8-0. Moving on to second read of policies. The policy committee met, we reviewed the policies, we're bringing them forward. Board member Bonnegorio wanted us to have a discussion about the public participation in board meetings. The committee looked at it, they decided to leave it as is at this time. So we have the policies before you, we can go through them one by one if you want, or we can do them if somebody has an idea to go through. Does anybody have, I guess, any significant questions before we move them as a whole? All right, so we won't move them as a whole, we're gonna run through them. All right, we're gonna start, can somebody move 1510 to the table, please? Moved by Mrs. Farmer, second by Ms. Flores. Any comments, questions, or concerns on 1510, regular Board of Education meetings? All right, seeing none, all those in favor? That passes 8-0. Moving on to 1512, agenda items. Can I somebody move that to the table, please? Moved by Ms. Farmer, second by Vice President Moore. Any comments, questions, concerns on that one? Ms. Farah?
I see there was a change in verbiage here regarding the agenda items. We're taking away designated board members, and we're replacing that with cabinet members.
Correct.
Okay, so we're taking away board, but adding cabinet. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Mr. Bonnegorio?
or cabinet, so that it leaves the flexibility there, because it seems to remove that flexibility to include board members.
From,
Hear what you said at the beginning. You want the board back in?
Yeah,
All right, okay, yeah, I got you.
it seems that it's an option that might or might not be exercised, but removing board seems to be more restrictive.
the reason it was done is because typically we do, I'll give you a background on it. We do the agenda at board officers, so to have, typically, board members don't come because it's normally, the agenda setting's a 5-minute meeting, that people don't want to take the time out of their day, so we just do it. Obviously, board officer, we had board officers this morning, Terry and I, we met with cabinet, and we had discussions creating the agenda for next week's meeting. So that's why we removed that, just because typically board members don't want to come for a 5-minute agenda. You have the ability to add anything to the agenda at any time. It's just at the agenda setting meeting that we remove the board members from it. That's the history behind it. But if you still want to amend it to add in board members, that's your prerogative.
Yeah, I'd like to make that proposal.
All right, so we're gonna add board members back in. There's an amendment. Is there a second on that amendment? There's a second on that amendment with Ms. Farah. Any comments or questions on the amendment?
Just-
Mark, yeah, can you?
Just to make clear,
yeah.
my proposal, the reason for that is not to require board members, other board members to participate, but, right.
Right. Do they have the option if it's not written there?
I mean, nobody's asked to come. I mean, I wouldn't have a problem if
Yeah,
somebody
well,
wanted to come.
right,
I mean,
I'm
I
just curious.
Don't figure most people wanna. It's
I
10
had been,
o'clock in the
I had been
morning.
talking about coming a couple times,
Okay.
Terry, but she
What-
said it's a 5-minute thing, so,
Yeah, It's a
yeah.
5-minute thing. Matters not to me.
But, so, do we need to keep board in there if Mark said one day he wanted to go?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be his prerogative to come. I wouldn't tell him no. I mean, maybe the next president would, but I don't know. To me, it's a glorious waste. We used to require board members to attend, but you were there for 5 minutes. So you took
Okay.
time out of your day, or took time off from work because
Right.
you were required to be there. So we kind of took it away, because most people, I mean, Terry and I are lucky enough, we don't work most of the time during the day. But
Right.
I know a lot of you do, so, but it's up to you if you want to make the commitment to come. Or the option to come, I guess.
The option, right.
I think, the other thing that I would just point out is that, big picture in terms of agenda, the work that we do at summer retreat in terms of identifying all the areas and things that we want to study and learn about and get presentations, that is in many ways a component of this in terms of everybody having a voice in terms of what they want to see, and that gets mapped out through the year and shared with you. And then regardless of whether you come or not, the idea of if something is a request to be put on the agenda can always be done with or without that language. So I just want to point out, because there is option, you don't have, there is option to add things to agendas.
All right, any other comments on the amendment? All those in favor of the amendment switching back to board, please raise your hands.
I guess I'm gonna, because you're right, Sean, if you're not the, who knows what could happen.
All right.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4. Those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. Motion fails. All right, so back on to the original. We're back to the original. And any comments, questions, or concerns on the original? All right, all those in favor of the original? Show of hands, yes or no? Yes, we have 1, 2, 3. Mr. Maloney, you're a yes or a no? Okay, that's fine. 1, 2, 3, 4. Tracy, which way were you?
Oh, I think I was gonna go with the original. But
Okay.
the amendment failed, right?
The amendment
So
failed,
there's-
so we're back to the
So either
original.
we're with it or we're not for this
Correct.
one. Okay.
All right, so show of hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those opposed? Mr. Maloney, where are you? I missed you. Okay, so that passes 6-2. Moving on to 3211, the sex offender policy. Can I have somebody move that to the table, please? Moved by Mrs. Flores, seconded by Mrs. Farmer. Any comments, questions, concerns on this one? Seeing none, all those in favor? That passes 8-0. Moving on, 3440, use of assistance animals. Can I have somebody move that to the table, please? Moved by Ms. Farah, seconded by Mr. Butler. Any comments, questions, or concerns on service animals? Ms. Farah?
So reading this, normally, my understanding of a service animal is somebody has a disability that they would need the animal with them. This particular language, and tell me if I'm wrong, it's stating that district employees or handlers can use the animal controls. This isn't not really anything to do with a person bringing like a seeing eye dog.
I think I can answer that, I hope. So there's two different categories of animals within the assistance animals. There's service animals, which are for students with disabilities, and then there's therapy animals, which are a broader social emotional support, and not as formal as a service animal.
Okay, and these are going to be therapy dogs. So this is, the district permits the use of therapy dogs on school grounds, subject to the conditions with the policy. And obviously, this is with who's going to be psychiatric service animals. Okay, I appreciate it, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, all those in favor? Those opposed? So that passes 6-2. Moving on to student grading information, 5673. Can I somebody move that to the table, please? Moved by Ms. Flores, seconded by Mrs. Farmer. Any comments, questions, concerns on this? Seeing none, all those in favor? This passes 8-0. All right, moving on to 5830, meals and refreshments. Can I have somebody move that to the table, please? Moved by Ms. Flores, seconded by Mr. Butler. Any comments, questions, concerns on this?
I'll just make a comment. I don't think the district has an Italian theme to it, apparently, but just make that observation.
Okay. Any other comments? Do you have a comment? Oh, sorry, I thought you were hitting your button. All
I'm
right,
Italian.
all those in favor? Those opposed? That passes 8-0. Moving on, 7120, compulsory attendance age. Can I have somebody move that to the table, please? Moved by Mr. Maloney, seconded by Vice President Millar. Any comments, questions, concerns on compulsory attendance age? All right, seeing none, all those in favor? That passes 8-0. All right, moving on to meeting adjournment. Mr. Maloney.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Very good. Can I get a second on that? Mrs. Farrow, all those in favor? That passes 8-0. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.